I didn't know if she could pick that up or not.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good sound.
Awesome.
Even with the mask on. So it is live at 5, an unusual early start to the Tuesday 7. It's Tuesday, and we're down here at 78th Street Studios. We're gonna, I don't know if you guys have been in here. If you're not from Cleveland and you're from other areas of the country or the world, this is a great art complex.
It's the best word to describe it.
Yeah, and it's a place that Beth and I come here just about every month, and we have artist friends who show down here and whose studios are down here. But we had the opportunity to interview Hillary Gent, and we wanted to start outside,
Yeah.
and then kind of show you where things look. So
Absolutely.
tell us how long you've been here.
I've been here for almost 12 years. Yeah, I've run my business here for 12 years. It's a huge artistic community. If you've never been here before, it is actually the largest arts complex in Northeast Ohio. We have 63 businesses here right now, which is really exciting and growing. And most of them are creative based. So we have artists, designers, makers, a black box theater, photography studios, commercial galleries, you name it. It's all under one roof. So as we go inside, you're going to kind of see a little bit of the maze of the building. I always encourage people to just kind of get lost here, because around every nook and cranny there's something really interesting to find. And we're going to end up on the second floor in my gallery.
So there's galleries and studios here, right?
Yeah.
And so when we see cars here, these are working artists that are working on stuff as we interview.
Yeah, we have some normal 9-to-5 businesses here too. Design studios, Alternative Press Magazine, which is a music magazine. They've been here for a long time. They have several employees that work here 9 to 5. So yeah, we've got several businesses like that that are here on the daily.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Beth, you want to do a kind of a pan so people can kind of
Sure.
see? So what was in this building prior to 78th Street Studios?
Great question. Lots of things. The most recent, and when I say most recent, it's not that recent, but was American Greetings.
Oh.
This was their world headquarters and their creative studios from like the 50s to the late 1980s. So this was the entire building was all American Greetings. Before that, it was several manufacturing places. But when we get up to the gallery, you'll see it's probably one of the oldest parts of the building, and it was an electric car factory. So the whole front facade of the building, which really isn't that large on 78th Street, was an electric car company, and they manufactured the carriages here and then shipped them out to become actual electric cars. And that was probably 1903 to 1905 to the 1920s.
Wow.
So yeah, old building, but it's still kicking.
The feel is, I love the feel of it.
Yeah.
And so we'll walk inside and
Great.
kind of see where things look like and get a little feel for.
Sounds good.
So yeah.
Good.
If you wanna. So we're the main entrance.
So the main entrance is actually in the back of the building. So if you ever come to visit, make sure you drive a little bit past all the murals on 78th Street and pull into the main lot. And we're going to pull into, you see the cars, you'll see this giant parking lot, you'll see a Dana DePue, who's a Cleveland artist, one of his neon signs on top of the entrance that says, "Your art sucks." We don't think your art sucks. It's a commentary about something. Read plaques when you're here. There's lots of signage to read, so make sure to read that sign. But you're going to come in the double glass doors, and it brings you into this kind of like lobby area where you have the choice to go down or up. And that's another reason, again, I tell people, just pick and go somewhere. During the day, almost all the businesses are working here for the most part. So if you go down, you're going to end up more in our like design floor, fashion design, some interior designers, furniture designers, vintage antique dealers, and a museum. And if you go up, you're going to run into more of our commercial galleries and maker spaces. So
Sounds
we're going up.
Yeah, we're going up, and now we're going to Hedge Gallery. Now that's your gallery, right?
Yeah. I've been running Hedge for almost 12 years. It'll be 12 years in April, which is really exciting. Time flies when you're having a really good time.
Now, I suspect there's something behind the name Hedge Gallery. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. It's actually H, E, and G are my initials. And my family name is important to me, so I wanted to incorporate it without being too loud about it. And that's how it came about.
So we're on the second floor here, and you share this floor with a lot
Oh my
of.
gosh, yeah. So we've got, let's see, jewelers, like I mentioned, music magazine, a record store, a theater, Can Journal has their office here. Going down, we have two fabulous art conservators that work on this floor. And my gallery has a couple working artist studios and then more commercial galleries and photo studios. So, yeah.
Everything just on this floor alone.
Just on this floor.
Get a little stuff up there.
And here's the end brush.
Is this live?
Yeah.
It is.
Hi,
You should say hi.
Look, it's Hillary's
Dan-
husband.
Dan is my husband, and he's the one responsible for all of the development of this beautiful building.
Oh,
So
That's why he's crawling home to read a book.
wow.
he's the reason this place lives and breathes.
Congratulations.
And thank
It's
you for that.
stunning,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. It wouldn't be worth doing without people to enjoy it. So
Yeah.
It's
Thanks for sharing.
fantastic. Nice to meet
Absolutely.
you.
thank you, world. We'll be here when you need us.
So good. Thank you.
And just an FYI, as you go through the hallways, I just always like to point out, they are all curated with artwork either by artists that are working here or artists that we represent as gallerists and galleries. So when you come and visit, make sure you make your way through the hallways too. Even if a couple of the businesses aren't necessarily open, all the galleries have curated the hallways so beautifully. It's worth checking that out.
That's
And it
true.
changes pretty quickly.
That's true. We always end up being here way longer than we anticipated because every corner, like you said, has something to look at.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
absolutely. Come on in.
So more.
Some more, yeah. It's never ending, which is fantastic because, you know, as you know, artists, some artists like to work really large scale. So having this space to exhibit in and show, like for instance, Ramparts Gallery, they just finished a show with Dana DePew, and they put some of the work that didn't sell out here. They're continuing the exhibition. And we do that as gallerists. Like, I moved Justin Brennan's work out into that hallway to exhibit it. He just closed in Hedge Gallery. So people get a taste of what we had on view and what's new. So. Fabulous jewelers and ceramicists in here. We have a fine art collector right next door. I've got really great neighbors. I'm really lucky for them. I love it. Come on in.
So as we're passing through this sliding door, right,
Yeah.
this is when we step into the official Hedge Gallery,
Yes,
right?
exactly. You've crossed the line. Now you're here. Like I mentioned outside, all of the brick and the archways, the steel doors, the wood floors, these are all from early 1900s. So this is one of the older parts of the building. I tried to leave, when I decided to move here, I was specifically looking for a more industrial feel, not just a white box. So when I had this vision for a gallery, I really wanted to leave some of the authenticity of the buildings. I did. I really didn't cover up too much of the brick, and although it can be a pain in the butt to hang art on, I just didn't want to cover it up with drywall. So we've got a special hanging system now. Can't see it, it's all disguised, but we left all the brick. The steel doors were covered in like 20 coats of really ugly paint, and we stripped that all off because those are just beautiful gems. The floor actually was covered in like a black tar adhesive that we stripped and sanded down to this gorgeous wood that had been covered up for over 100 years, so preserved perfectly.
Yeah. There's something about the space, even without artwork,
Yeah.
that's inviting.
It is. It has a very warm feel to it.
Yeah.
People tell me often that they feel like the art is very accessible to them. It doesn't feel like it's this cold, stale box. And that was always my objective upon opening, was to make sure that people did have that accessibility to local artists, that they didn't feel that there was some barrier between them and the artists and the artwork. So I'm excited that that goal has been met and that it continues to flourish.
Yeah. For those folks who are watching live, or those folks that watch the replays, feel free to ask questions if they're provided here live.
Yeah.
Beth will go ahead and shoot those out, and if they arrive over the next week or so, we'll go back and find ways to respond to those as well, so we have those questions
I'd
answered
love
for
to
you.
answer questions.
Yeah, why don't we head over here and I hadn't thought about the challenge of leaving brick walls on a gallery because of the challenge of hanging artwork.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
We're 6 feet apart now,
Yeah,
right? Okay,
yeah.
cool. Awesome. Those stairs can be a doozy with a mask on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there were many challenges when I first opened the gallery, just trying to wrap my head around running an art gallery and working with artists, because I'm an artist too. And so I felt this need. Hi, Jack. This is Jack. Jack's the gallery mascot, so he's been here the whole time. 12 years.
12 years.
Counting, so yeah, he's probably a little older than that, but hi, buddy. 5 o'clock's his happy hour, so he's probably going to join us.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Okay. But yeah, so as an artist myself, I think there were a lot of challenges at first trying to show other people's work, other artists' work, and figure out the best way to, network with them and then make their work public on public view and market it. So I had to teach myself a lot of different lessons along the way.
Yeah. What we want to do is, last week we interviewed Juan Chiarte.
Oh, yeah.
And
Saw
I
that.
know that you know Juan and have been involved in support of the different life drawing groups and portrait groups here as well.
Yes.
But Juan had, I have a giveaway for those folks that shared Juan's video last week. We have some cards from his Q Design Studio. So if you wouldn't mind just drawing one name from there.
I wouldn't mind at all.
And the winner for
Janet Dodro. Yay!
Janet, congratulations.
Yeah.
What we'll do is we'll make sure that we get that out to you, Janet. We know that you'll appreciate this as much as anybody would. I'm gonna hand this over here, Bob.
Yeah.
So, you had mentioned that you're also an artist yourself. So take us back to like early creative days for Hillary, whatever that means.
Sure.
Like, when did you discover that creativity, painting, art gallery essentially was going to be part of your future?
Well, I guess I didn't really know art gallery was going to be part of my future, although I will say, while cleaning up my office during the shutdown, I found an old journal from about 2003, 2004, which was right after graduating from art school.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated from art school in 2002, I can't remember, but I went to Kent State University, got my BFA in painting, moved to Cleveland for a design job, had this vision that I was going to eventually either go to Chicago or New York to get my master's, but had a really great job and ended up kind of falling in love with the city after moving here. And so I found this journal a few months ago, and I was reading it, and I had written about wanting to open some kind of space, and I didn't call it an art gallery. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I wanted to have some kind of space that embraced the creative culture of Cleveland and helped less established artists who weren't as well known in the art scene to have their voices and their work seen, their voices be heard and their art be seen. And I was writing about that a lot. This didn't open until 2009, so it must have been manifesting in my subconscious, and I was writing about it. But I think I was feeling as an artist, as a creative person, that there wasn't necessarily a place for us, and there weren't those like stepping stones to take in order to become more established or well known or respected.
Right.
It just seemed like there were already those perfect galleries where you had to have this beautiful series of work, and it all had to be at a certain price point in order to show there. And it felt that there was some kind of barrier between people in their mid to early 20s or early to mid 20s and into their like late 30s kind of thing. I was like, where do we go? So I was envisioning a large space where several different artists could show at once. After I opened the gallery in 2009, most of the shows I was working on were large group shows. So sometimes up to like 15 artists being shown. Very different than what I do now. But that's kind of a little
history.
Yeah, a nice synopsis there. So you were a painter.
Uh-huh.
Majored in painting at Kent State.
Yep.
Where did you hang out at Kent State? Because I'm a Kent State grad too, and
Oh,
I
are
always,
you?
yeah, I always think of
Oh
like
my gosh! Well, I hung out at the Zephyr a lot.
okay, the art building, of course.
Right. The art building a lot. Yeah. I didn't hang. I lived in different homes like every single year.
Yeah.
So I tried to create little artist studio spaces in every home so that I could hang out, but I didn't end up spending a lot of time in those spaces.
So you graduated with a degree in painting,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously that, I'm assuming that was your passion, right?
Definitely. Although I love art history, so I took a lot of art history classes. Probably should have like minored in that or something, but didn't. Yeah.
So you're painting. Did you find that you were challenged with finding galleries to exhibit your work?
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes I'd find like coffee shops or restaurants that were kind of in Akron that were kind of functioning as art spaces and, you know, food and beverage spaces. And I would show there. I showed in a few small galleries in Kent, which were really fun shows after I graduated. But yeah, definitely. Once I moved up to Cleveland, it didn't seem like I could figure out where and to, you know, leave my footprint and where to leave a mark or even try to. So there was definitely a challenge there.
Yeah. Let's say over a month.
Yeah.
And this is just a guesstimate, right? I mean, there's no science to it.
Yeah.
But over a month, how much time do you spend on your own work versus on exhibiting and promoting other artists?
Not as much as I'd like to.
Okay.
But I am making a lot more work in the past. I would say since 2018, I really got this jump start on painting again, and I think it's because I had some shows lined up of my own, and I started working harder at my own, endeavors. And that is also because the gallery kind of started to take its own legs, to form its own legs, and I had the right people helping me out. I had some really solid employees and still do, and so the gallery was starting to be able to function without me putting 80 hours a week into it. I kind of figured it out, after, almost 10 years. So that was exciting because I saw that happening, and I'm still, figuring things out. I haven't figured anything out by any means, but to be able to put a stamp on it and say it's done, there's always something new I'm learning, which is why I love my job. But I am spending a lot more time making my own work in the past, I would say 2 to 3 years, which is great too. So.
Yeah. So the very beginning, when you opened up the doors, was it exhibiting work from many artists at a single time? Was that kind of how you started?
Yeah, I wanted to do group exhibitions. A lot of them had a theme. Sometimes I'd even team up with local colleges or universities. I did a show with Kent State. I did a show with Ursuline College. I did a show that was primarily based on people that had graduated from Akron. I even did an MFA show for an Akron grad. So she was graduating. She wanted to show her thesis exhibition here because it was large-scale sculptures. That was a really fun show. Done 2 shows with a performance artist that we represent. So those were really exciting shows because they were definitely more interactive. She was physically performing here and dancing and creating work in front of a crowd. So we've done lots of, it's not all 2D. It's not like this, everything is perfectly square and goes in the same place every time. Every show has a different feel to it. And I always want that.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want this to be a stale white box. So.
Last week we interviewed Juan Chiarte, for those folks that are just jumping in right now, and he shared with me that you hosted 2 the drawn and quartered
Those
gatherings.
were so fun. Those were so wonderful. And thank God they were pre-COVID because they were packed full of people watching these artists create, and there were different models in different areas of the room. I modeled and sat for one of the groups, and those were fabulous events. Yeah.
What other memorable, I know that you're like probably everyone is memorable in some form or fashion. What other perhaps maybe more unique shows have appeared here
Well, I will touch on in 2019, the gallery celebrated its 10-year anniversary, and I did a large exhibition of Douglas MacSutter's work. Douglas MacSutter is a pretty well-known Cleveland artist, someone I respect and love, adore his work and him as a person. And so to be able to show this, it wasn't a retrospect, but it was a show that covered work from the early 1980s to present day. It was a huge show. I think we had like 55 pieces of his work in the exhibition. So the whole gallery, including like the foyer lobby gallery, was full of his work. And it was an exciting show to put together because we really dug through his archives. I mean, I was in his home studio, I was in his attic, I was in his downtown studio, and we were pulling pieces and picking out pieces, and some of this work had never been seen before. So it was really extraordinary exhibit that I was so proud of. And I was going through a lot of personal challenges at that time too, so you know, to watch the gallery turn 10 years old and to put on this huge show in the midst of dealing with a lot of like personal things going on in my life, it was challenging, but it also, when you get through something like that, you realize, okay, I can do that. I've got this, you know? So that was an exciting time in my life. And I would say that like everything since then has been getting better and better and evolving in such an exciting way. We had a few sculpture shows that were really fabulous. The one I mentioned to you, the MFA student from Akron, her name is Annie Stimson. That was a really powerful exhibition. We did a painting exhibition with two fabulous women artists, Nikki Woods and Katie Richards, together. And they're both such dynamic painters. To show their work together was just this like glorious show. So that was a really fun one, just to name a few.
Tell us the process, because it piqued my interest as you were talking about digging into
Archives.
Yeah, archives
Yeah.
and into a studio to go,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
this is one that would be perfect for this show.
Sure.
Tell us how that process works and how you start off from scratch and find your vision along the way.
Yeah, well, the show actually that we're sitting in front of is a really good example to talk about because it's two women artists, Karen D. Beckwith, who's a printmaker, and Amber Ford, who's a photographer. So this show was unique in where I'm, trying to create a dialogue between two artists' work. Every year for the past 3 years, I've been focusing on a printmaking highlight or spotlight exhibition because I don't represent a lot of printmakers, and I would say the general public sometimes hears the word print and they think it's a copy of something or like a giclée, something you buy in the store. It's just a $20 thing that's
Right.
a copy. But printmaking is this whole incredible method, and it's a fine art practice. And so each year I try to do an exhibition with at least 1 to 2 local, like Northeast Ohio printmakers to showcase their work and also talk about the methods and materials so that people can learn a little bit more about it. This year I wanted to include photography because in some ways I feel like photography is the same way as viewed as printmaking, where, I can take a picture on my cell phone, so I'm a photographer. But the fine art of photography is just as detailed and as a printmaker. There are so many layers to the work that happens before the final print is printed, whether it's digital or done in a darkroom, either or. So when it comes to putting a show together, especially one like this, I'm typically either working with brand new work that's never been seen before. That's what I tend to like to exhibit. And I do several studio visits. Some of these were virtual with these artists, but I go to their maker space, wherever that might be, whether it's their house or an actual studio, and we just talk. We'll flip through what they've been working on. Sometimes, a lot of the time, the things that they're working on are unfinished. Mm-hmm. They're stapled to the wall here, or they're in a sketchbook, or they're ideas. And so I'm kind of trusting their process. Usually it's because I've worked with them before, so I know they're going to produce, and at some point we're going to have a show. I give them dates too, so they have some flexibility, like, oh yeah, those dates work well for me. So then we set the date, usually about 8 months to a year and a half out, so that we have some good scheduling there. Yeah, so that's kind of like how it begins. Those are like the pieces and the parts. The artists themselves that I represent, I've been working with most of them. Like if you go on our website, you'll see under Hedge artgallery.com, you'll see artists as a link. Those are all the artists that are part of our like roster. And I've been working with them most of them for like over 5 to 7, 8 years. So
How many artists-ish?
70, including myself.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So once you gather the work
Yeah.
and it arrives here, are you picturing where that goes
No.
ahead of time? So it comes here and then you move it?
To some extent,
Yeah.
I guess, yes. You know, if I see a really large piece in someone's studio, I'm like, oh, I know what wall that's going on. Because the wall behind you, and we'll kind of move around through the
Yeah.
gallery in a minute, is like a feature wall where you can get really far away from it. So if someone's working really large scale, I'll tend to put something on that wall. But the gallery has quirks. I mean, there are little like nooks, and there's brick, and then some of the work is, you know, walls are drywall, and we're dealing with some different like natural lighting versus the LED track lighting. So honestly, I think it's because I'm an artist, I'm a more visual person. Once the work gets here, that's actually the most exciting part to me, and where I get to tell a story with it and space it out in here and place it where it's going to go. And when I'm working with two different artists, like this exhibit, which we'll see, you know, I have that future challenge of, okay, what pieces are going to go next to one another and why? I always think that no matter where you go, whether it's a museum or a gallery, there should be a reason something is next to another piece. It shouldn't just be for design aesthetic, although that matters. But most of the time, there is some kind of dialogue formed between the work, even if it's just one artist. And so I love creating that. Most of the artists don't intend it either. They bring their 30 pieces of work and they're like, here, it's yours. I did all the work, now it's your turn. And I love that. I would rather be in here alone or with one of my assistants, you know, figuring out what's going to go where.
Yeah.
So,
Let's unplug and walk if that sounds good.
yeah, I'm great with that, 100%.
So
Do we
I
need
know-
these or are we good?
Yeah, we can just unplug and
Okay.
that'll
Great.
Brown and tell us.
Yeah, sure. So Karen Beckwith, who I mentioned to you, she's a master printmaker, which means she has some incredible training under her belt. She also taught at CIA, Cleveland Institute of Art, for a long time. When I went to Karen's studio the last time, so I actually visited with her, I think almost 3 times before we, you know, figured out what pieces were going in the show. She showed me these old window panes that she had started to install her prints into. And a lot of the theme and story behind her prints has to do with some rural America, found areas like back alleys, and places that you kind of get lost in a city or in a rural area. And so the prints are based on a lot of photography that she takes. And she showed me these, you know, vintage window panes that she'd found, and just thought that they would incorporate, again, some of that dialogue about the themes that she was printing about. And I loved it. I fell in love with it. One of the things, though, she didn't, you know how to do was install them somewhere. She knew that she wanted to kind of hang them from these old rusty chains that she'd found them on, because she thought this, you know, textural element added to it, and I agreed with her. But there were some that didn't have chains and did have chains. So that was one of the things that we worked out together, was like, okay, we're gonna have to hang these from the ceiling. They're beautiful when they're floating. They create these really elegant shadows behind them. And they allow people to look at a print not just behind, you know, a classic white gallery frame that's behind glass. Now we're looking at it behind a found object that's a little dirty, and the paint's flaking, and it feels old. And so now we're thinking about a new print that's being compared to something that has this, you know, aesthetic to it, and letting those two things tell a story. So, yeah, visiting Karen was a blast. She's full of really great ideas. And so, you know, this was something that she really wanted to do. She was like, is it going to work? Yeah, let's make it work. Yeah. most of the time I'm like, let's make it work. Let's figure it out, no matter how heavy it is,
Yeah.
or large, or weird, let's make it work. So,
And that is something that I notice as I enter a space, right? The shadows cast and the floating frames, but I don't always think about the intention of creating a gallery or an exhibition, and how important that is. Even just saying, do we want it 12 inches from the wall? Or do
Right.
we want it 24 inches from the wall? Those are
Yeah.
things, I mean, that's art in and of itself.
telling the story, right? And some of the work too, I encourage a lot of artists that work on paper, like a printmaker or a photographer, to not frame everything. I mean, you don't have to put a frame, you don't have to put everything behind glass. I'm not that type of a gallery where everything has to come in this perfected state. I personally like seeing the paper. I like seeing the rough edges. I like seeing a photograph just on the beautiful paper that it gets printed on. So I did let both of these artists know, like, if you're not comfortable framing everything, which can also be really expensive, let's show some of the work unframed. And so as we walk through, I'll kind of show you, like, this is a good example over here of a print that Karen chose to leave unframed. And so we've hung it with just these simple little things called earth magnets. You put 2 screws in the wall and it stays on the wall. It's secure, it's, floating a little bit, but I think that's beautiful. And you get to see the really, deep textures that come in when the screen print gets to kind of shine without glass being over it.
Yeah.
But then I paired it with Amber's photography, which is framed. And she chose to frame these because these are these little vignettes, and I think that's why she cleaned them up and cropped them. She was using a point and shoot camera, capturing things that immediately spoke to her about human nature in the environment, how we affect the environment and how the environment affects us. And Karen is dealing with that topic a lot, so that's why I paired these 2 artists together. But it is sometimes nice for someone to come in and see, oh, something can be framed, or it doesn't necessarily have to be framed. Or I could buy this unframed and I could frame it myself, however I want to frame it. So we have several prints of Karen's in a rack here, because she's a very prolific artist. So if people wanted to purchase something again unframed, they could flip through here, find it, find the price on there and purchase it. So. And that's a more affordable way to go about buying art too.
Yeah.
Giving people options.
You're talking about your giant walls.
Oh, that's the giant wall. So see how far away we can get from it?
Oh yeah.
That's a big wall that can fit, a nice, really large scale piece. The last show we had, I think I had 8 pieces of Justin Brennan's on it that were highlighted really nicely. So if someone's got a lot of medium-sized work, then it can be filled kind of salon style.
And the shadows are gorgeous,
Right, aren't they
both
pretty?
close up. They look wonderful, but the more you can see it here, but even through the camera, the more you back away, how they just accentuate and reframe the piece is excellent.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the final detail in putting a show up. We usually don't have we have changed the lighting for almost every show. Some of it can stay, but we've got to move things around as the art changes. And so that's something that one of my assistants, who actually has a background in theater, helps me with, is lighting. And she's really great at spotting everything and making sure each piece has an equal amount of light.
Yeah.
So these are movable walls. So I did kind of build those in. There used to be a big wall here, like where that exit sign is. This was all a big canvas wall. So in 2012, I kind of opened the gallery up and had these movable walls created so that we can break up the space differently, kind of create different feng shui, so to speak.
And to even have them on wheels and have them portable where
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah, these move, there are casters under there, these move, so it's nice to have the ability to change the space. Because I think it's more dynamic that way. And depending on the artwork, sometimes you want to get rid of any of the movable walls because you're just showing large work, or 3-dimensional work. So that's definitely a nice option.
Now there are two entrances to
Yes.
your gallery. Both
Yeah.
are these great
Crazy doors,
yeah, crazy
steel
doors, steel doors that you
Fire doors.
that you strip down.
Yeah.
Probably it took forever to strip those
It
down.
did, yeah. I tried to use like green stripper too, and that didn't work. So you had to use the toxic stuff, which means you know, wear those masks before masks were cool.
But as people walk in,
Mhm.
some folks may be walking through this door,
Yeah.
and some folks are walking through this door. And how does that change
Yeah.
how you set things up?
Well, I typically leave this wall where it is because you can see the artwork on this wall all the way down at the end of the hallway. So I always try to feature either pieces that we've been using as promotional works or another large scale work. In this case, because there are two artists, you know, I'm featuring one of each of their pieces on this wall. So I always try to do something, you know, dynamic on this feature wall. The other door is actually through here.
It's on the other side.
Yeah, so, the fun thing about Hedge Gallery, this is my little foyer gallery, and, this entrance goes down to West 78th Street. And there's a neighboring gallery now downstairs called Current, which is really exciting to actually have a neighboring gallery down there. So once we get through all of this COVID stuff, this door will be open more to the public, especially on Third Fridays. When I'm open during the week, both entrances are open, but during Third Fridays, while we're managing head count, we just have one main entrance.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, people can come in this way. I usually feature one artist that's not part of the exhibit in here. It's my work right now. So this is all some recent work that I've been doing.
Tell us a little bit about this because I've
Sure.
seen some of it find its way to new homes. Right?
Yes, yeah, it's exciting. Most of this work is influenced by Lake Erie. I live by the water, and I love the water. The water has so much to do with, I think, you know, my inspiration to make art. And I didn't realize it until a few years ago. And I go on the water a lot. I kayak, I paddleboard. We have a small boat. We're not avid boaters, but we get out there. And I walk by the water a lot since I live by it. And there was just this movement that I was trying to capture because it spoke to me. The way light reflected on water, the texture, the constant change. Lake Erie never looks the same. The colors are always changing. And I was using oil paints at that time, 2017, 18. And I realized the oil paints weren't working for me. It was one of those things. I was trained in oils. I love oils. The colors are dynamic. I love the consistency. But for what I wanted to capture, this movement, oils just were too stiff. And so was a paintbrush. So I put my paintbrushes away. One artist that I spoke with, that I kind of had gone to for like, can you talk to me about my work? Can you, studio visit kind of thing, give me a critique. He told me, why don't you put your brushes away and just use pieces of like cardboard or a palette knife or just something else that's a little more broad and not so constricted. So I did that for a while, and that kind of got me somewhere. But I still wasn't getting that fluidity. And I talked to another artist who said, well, have you ever tried house paint? Just a more, fluid type of paint. No, I've never tried house paint. I never thought about that. So he gave me a few sample containers of like latex paint, and I started messing around with it a little bit, and I realized what I needed to do was to pour the paint, not paint with the paint. If I really wanted to get those large swipes and those colors and that movement and capture those pieces of light that were being reflected and those shapes, I had to pour it onto the canvas. So I had a huge roll of canvas. I rolled it out, and this was back in my little studio, and it was huge. It was bigger than anything I'd probably ever painted before. And I primed it, and then I literally just started pouring paint on it and trying to mimic these shapes that I was seeing and this movement that I was seeing. And it started to work. It definitely didn't come out the first try, but working large scale, which was something I'd never done before, and working with a brand new medium and eliminating some tools that were hindering me, I had to put them away. Like I literally put them all in a drawer. And it's like, I'm not We're not talking for a while. And this new style came to me. But it took a lot of practice and figuring out how to pour it and what type of paint I wanted to use. Now I use, for the most part, Sherwin-Williams paint, their latex paint, which is really good quality. It's 100% archival. The colors are fabulous. Local, Cleveland. Yeah, so all of these are Sherwin-Williams. This is all their paint.
A few months ago, I interviewed Mac Lembelski, and he's an artist. He joined me here when we came to see the Justin Brennan's preview, and he said, Roger, and I mean he's a young artist and he works big, and he's like, you have to, because I always paint on the wall, right? And he said there's something about painting on the ground, large scale painting on the ground. Were you painting on the ground?
Yeah.
Were you painting on the ground prior to this? And so this was...
Yeah, I also had to put the easel away. Bye, easel. No more easel. But it helped.
Yeah.
It helped for me to be moving. So I was trying to capture, like I said, I keep saying this movement and fluidity. I needed to be moving around while I did that. I couldn't just be standing still with this very controlled substance and this very constrictive tool. Not that I don't love brushes and oil paints, but in order to capture what I wanted to capture and to kind of break out of the uber tight details that I was trying to capture.
Yeah.
When I tried to paint water and the reflections with oils, I found myself just uber focusing on these tiny little nuances and details, which were beautiful.
But
they
you were losing the
away.
movement.
I was losing away.
Yeah.
I was losing my initial inspiration to paint the water. So this has also helped me become a little bit more abstract than representational as a landscape artist, so to speak. It helps.
Is your evolution similar to some of the other artists you've worked with, where you start off, right, and you're tight and you're detailed, and you start to get big and expressive and producing, more work?
In a way, probably. I mean, I watch the artists that we represent evolve. I've watched a lot of them, grow, this wonderful growth where what they were creating before was good, but, the series of work that comes 2 or 3 years later is so powerful. And sometimes I feel like they're just trying to make work. And then 2 or 3 years later down the road, they realize I need to make work that's really coming from me, from my heart, from my mind, from what I'm inspired by, not from what I'm seeing in the world around me. I think we, as artists, we're naturally inspired by each other. So sometimes that can cause a little competition where it's like, who's the better figurative artist? No, who's the better plein air painter? And there's this, you don't hear about it, but you kind of see it because you see styles reflect each other or kind of get really, really similar. And I think that's again, where an artist is just trying to make work to prove that they can represent something, whether it's a waterscape or the human figure. Instead of diving into a narrative or a dialogue, or maybe addressing something political or personal and allowing that to come out. And that takes bravery, that takes a lot of courage to do that. But when you're able to, or at least able to tell the story behind the work, I think the work gets deeper. And I think people enjoy it more, in a sense. I don't know. That's my personal opinion, though.
From I see a lot of square work. I also see that you work vertically, portrait more so than landscape horizontally.
Well, I sold all the horizontal ones, so that's why I don't have them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
I love something that can put some right over their couch. And I did a lot of these
So this
longer.
one?
So that one's sold. That one's sold. It feels like anytime I do a horizontal piece, I sell it. So I need to do more.
That's important.
It is.
Right?
It's weird. It's so. But on the other hand, I've sold a lot of vertical pieces too. It's what people respond to. I don't think you can make art generated. This is the exact format that people like in their home or their office, or wherever it is, corporation or museum for that matter. I think you have to really make art from inside.
I would imagine that as you were talking about how the artists influence each other and you get caught up in that peer pressure almost, you could be coming into the circle of an artist that you accidentally end up emulating, not be as prolific because they're somewhere else in their evolution.
Yeah.
And so suddenly if you're in a shift and you see someone who seems to be in a similar shift, but they're popping like finished pieces out left and right, and you're still bogged down because you're still figuring it out, then at that point, that's another layer that you have to get rid of, along with putting your tools in the drawer, and maybe you're moving to a different tool at that point.
Absolutely.
And then finding out that all your landscapes are going to go as opposed to the portraits, then that's going to completely kind of another mental piece that you have to let go too, so you can succeed for yourself.
You do, yeah. And I think it kind of messes with our heads. Artists start selling something, whether it's a subject matter or a style or a size, and then sometimes we think, oh, we just got to make that, because we get caught up too in the dollar signs of it all. And I think that's when work can get really stale or monotonous. And again, that's going to show in the work that you create. So you have to find that fine line of, yes, I'm making this for the public, or yes, I'm making this for an exhibition, but I'm also making it for myself. It's satisfying. I'm fulfilling a creative passion, a gift, and it's work. I'm doing the work. And so it's about why you're doing the work, though. I think you have to think about that.
Is there any... I'm sure that folks are listening intently, and for those folks that are expecting that this would be showing at 7, we're gonna play this again tonight, and it'll be out there for replays for quite some time. I know that your opening for this installation is officially tomorrow.
Yes. So we do a preview for every show that we open, and the preview is always on a Wednesday night, 6 to 8 p.m. So tomorrow evening, 6 to 8, the gallery is open. We don't do a managed head count for previews just because they are smaller attendance, which is really nice, and they always have been. So they're a great opportunity to meet the artist in person, talk to them, have an intimate conversation without a lot of people here. And then Friday evening is the official opening to the public, and that's part of Third Fridays. Third Fridays has been going on here at 78th Street Studios for probably over 10 years. And it used to be a very large scale indoor and outdoor art walk or art experience. We are managing it very safely now. It is a sign up, so you have to get a ticket, and we check you in at the door, and it's a staggered entrance from 5 to 8 p.m. And it's actually we've been seeing great amounts of people, again, safely getting through the building. It's a big building, 170,000 square feet. Takes up 2 city blocks, so people can really social distance here. It's nice, but once we get it a number, we cut that off so we can again manage the head count safely. So Third Friday is when we always do our public openings, because that way there's lots to see while you're here.
Yeah. Is there? I know that you don't want to show everything because you've got 2 artists, but is there? What else? Should we see before?
We could preview the show.
Right.
I'm 100% okay with that. I love a preview. So, as we make our way through this gallery, this little space here, I hung a lot of Karen's work that was unframed, like I mentioned, and tried to pair some of it up with Amber's work as well. Karen's been very busy, so she had a lot of work, which was, some artists, when they know they're going to be exhibiting, they just start pumping out work. Yeah. And it's primarily her full-time gig too. So like I said, she was teaching at CIA for a while, but she is done with that, and she's very focused on making work and exhibiting work.
Are both Karen and Amber Northeast Ohio artists?
Yeah. Amber moved to New Orleans for a while, but she came back to Cleveland and is here now. And Karen, actually her hometown is Corey, Pennsylvania, but she is officially a Clevelander too now. So
Tuesday at 7 and the galleries and 78th Street Studios, I think, is proof that there's a strong creative community here in Northeast Ohio. What do you think Cleveland offers that keeps you here?
Well, I gotta say, the affordability is hard to turn down. I definitely couldn't operate a space like this in a bigger city. There's no way. I like living here because I appreciate the change of seasons. I think in the art scene specifically, there's so much going on and to get involved in, and you can really network well with groups of artists and gallerists, other curators, and then you have the music, theater, dance, design world side of art. So they're really, I mean, the creative community here is so dynamic, it's huge. So if you're trying to run a small business like this that's focused on the arts, once you get your feet wet, you're gonna meet this whole expanse of people, which makes, my job easier. It's a fairly easy city to network in. Again, once you jump in, you've got people supporting you, you've got people encouraging you, you've got people that want to show. So it wasn't hard to, get off the starting block. It was just hard overcoming some of the initial challenges of running a business on your own, being your own boss.
It was ironic because as we connected on Facebook for the interview, I realized we had 58 friends in common. And I was like, there it is, right?
And
It's
they're
the
all
network.
probably in Cleveland to some
Mhm.
extent. Yeah. I will say the one thing that, since we're talking about Cleveland in general, we might be going through some political change here soon. I hope we do. And the one thing that I do hope is that eventually this city isn't so completely focused on tourism being food and sports. Because when you think about Cleveland, or when you see it from a peripheral viewpoint, that's what gets highlighted. And that's where a lot of the funding and the money goes. When the arts in general, again, you can branch off into dance, theater, design, performance, and then you can come into the fine arts realm. When you look at the arts in Cleveland, they're a huge portion of what makes this city so special and so dynamic. And yet the attention that we receive for the hard work that we put in is like this. And that to me is a bummer. It's a bummer that people that are higher up, especially in the politics of the city, just haven't taken the time to realize what we're doing here. So my hope is that as things begin to change and evolve in this city, which I think they are, that more of a focus will come into the arts sector, and the support will be there, so that especially the nonprofits of this section, which there are a lot of, can continue to grow. They can continue to support other working artists, and then I get to show those artists. So I mean, it's a full circle thing. But I just think the city needs to get a little shift gears.
Yeah.
Look at some of the neighborhoods and the reasons these neighborhoods have blossomed and grown, and people move here, and all of a sudden residential complexes are being built all around them. Why is that? Honestly,
It's not the Cavaliers.
it's not our sports teams.
Yeah.
It's just not.
I love them, but
Love them
that's not
too.
what's bringing people into
and
the
I
city.
love our restaurants, don't get me wrong. Some of our local chefs are incredible, but that's not all this city is. So that's just my 2 cents.
That's welcome to hear, because I want to kind of continue to explore that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are just about a year out of being shut down, so people are going to watch this years to come, and they'll be like, when was that? Well, it's March 2021.
Yeah.
We're starting to emerge out of COVID. What has that forced isolation, as well as maybe open up virtual connections, how has that affected, do you think, the artists that you team up with, that you represent, and Hedge Gallery? How is that virtual and now this emergence out of that?
I think most of the artists we represent took advantage of the shutdown whether they were making masks at home to donate to friends, family, and healthcare workers, and then do their own work too. I noticed that many of the artists that we work with were, very prolifically creative at that time. Again, if it wasn't just their own work, there were other projects, side projects going on too. Myself, I definitely took advantage of it. When I was home, when we were officially closed with the doors not open, I went back into my oil paints and I got my easel out and I took a bunch of little small canvases home and I went outside in April and May and I painted our whole entire yard. It was like, this is therapeutic for me. I remembered landscape painting outside and how much that fed my soul in art school. And then I stepped away from it for a long time and I was like, I think I need to do that again. Just not focus on making art to sell and making art for a show, just painting, in general, landscape, which I love. So I have a feeling that a lot of artists did that. And from what I know, the people I talk to, I know a lot of them just, fed their passions and their gifts and followed their hearts and just kept making work. Because most artists don't give up. We're gonna make work, whether we're writers, dancers, painters, sculptors, we're going to make things. We can't help that. That's who we are. That is our work. That's our job. So I think people kept doing that for the most part.
I think non-artists don't understand the fulfillment that occurs when we complete a project or we hang it or we, pen a poem or we perform on stage, whatever that is, that fulfillment is something that we understand.
Yeah.
That a lot of folks don't.
Right. Because they see the final product.
Right.
They don't see the work that goes into creating the final product.
And even the hanging on the wall for the gallery. Tell us about these pieces here.
Yeah. So another piece by Karen Beckwith and more photography that I've paired up with Karen's. The reason I paired all of these together, especially this grouping, is because I saw that Amber was really focused on, again, how human lives interact with their environment. And Karen, I feel, is dealing with what humanity leaves behind in their environment, or what are the remnants of human life in buildings and architecture or in alleys and street scenes. So I thought these 6 pieces really, really worked well together. I like that you can see people in some of Amber's work, like the physical presence of humans, and then in some of her work, the people are completely absent. Karen's work is totally void of any human, but yet you see clothes, and you see hangers, and you see doors, and you see, pieces of greenhouse and mailboxes, so things that people left behind. It's really exciting work. And again, this is the 3rd year that we've featured printmaking, and I think I'll probably continue to focus on photography and printmaking just because those are 2 materials that I don't get to show as much. But I show a lot of painters here, probably because I love painting. I'm a painter.
That's a good reason for
But
that.
yeah. But I try to broaden the horizons again with various materials and techniques so that the general public gets to experience that as well.
So how do we find you online? Like what's our way to
Website,
connect?
hedgeartgallery.com, pretty easy. We definitely upped the ante with social media, especially during COVID, because we realized people were on their phones a lot. So you can find us on Instagram and Facebook under Hedge Gallery. Me, myself, I'm out there too. I like social media for, the business and networking. I don't like to talk a lot on social media though, so if things get too gabby, I'm off. I'm more about a visual person, so I think I like Instagram a little bit better for that reason. But yeah, so we're on social media. We also are on YouTube, so we did start a YouTube channel during the shutdown. We realized people are watching video, they're craving human interaction, so we did these virtual studio visits with each one of our artists, which you can find on our YouTube channel if you just Google Hedge Gallery on YouTube. And then every exhibition that we do now is on our website, and that's something we didn't used to do. So after a show opens, every piece of work is visible under that exhibition. So those that still can't join us in person, which we totally understand and respect, can go onto the website and find each and every piece within a show. And they can shop there too. We made our website e-commerce friendly, so if people are still, shopping from the comfort of their home, they can buy art there too. So.
Well, we appreciate. Are there any questions that kind of end out? Again, if anybody has any questions as you watch the replays,
Yeah, I'm
just,
happy to answer, honestly, anything. You can also email or reach out via the website. Happy to answer questions. Happy to make appointments with people too. That's something that I kind of have picked up. We're open Wednesday through Saturday here. So all the hours are on the website, but I am guaranteed to be here, or one of my assistants, Wednesday through Saturday. Every third Friday of the month we're open. But if you wanted to come in during a time where people aren't here, happy to set up a time with you. I've done a few really, quiet visits with 1 or 2 people or a small group under 10, and that's really lovely time. The artists can be here too if you make a request. Most of the artists are like, we'll come over whenever. We want to talk to people. So I'm happy to make appointments too.
Well, thank you for sharing
Yeah.
this quiet space.
It
It's
is.
really nice.
Yeah.
To just
Yeah.
enjoy the visuals, and we appreciate you sharing your story
Yeah.
and showing us the
Thanks.
work.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you guys for joining us this Tuesday. We're going to have another Outside the Box this Thursday at 7:30. Just keep an eye out, because I'll show you something that's going to be unexpected here this week as well.
Cool.
But again, thank you, Hillary, for sharing Hedge Gallery, and thank you, Beth, for arming the camera. And guys, we'll stay close, and feel free to again shoot those questions through, and we'll get those answered as well.
Perfect.
All right, have a great week.
Thanks, everyone.